Hello everyone, welcome to Wind Down Wednesdays. I'm your host Paula Taylor and this is episode 141. I had a topic in mind for today, which we will get to. It's a great topic, but every morning, if you are familiar with the show at all, you know that I pull a card for myself every morning, an oracle card. And this morning I pulled a card that said play. And it basically, when I looked at the book, it was like, you have been working too hard and you need some fun in your life. And I was like, oh, that's probably true. So instead of the kind of like heavier topic that I had in mind for tonight's show, we're going to do something a little bit fun and playful. And we're going to do it in kind of two parts. So the first thing I want to say is that somewhere in the middle of July, we kind of quietly passed the 3-year anniversary of Wind Down Wednesdays. Didn't really say anything about it. We were kind of in the midst of doing some work and some things. I haven't done a show every single week, but it has been 3 years since I started this show. I started this show in the middle of a pandemic, kind of just as a way to bring some people together in a group collective practice. I picked Wednesdays on purpose because it's kind of, we call it hump day. It's like in the middle of the work week and it's kind of like, I'm trying to get to the weekend, but I'm not quite there yet. And it can feel like a little bit of, like a down day. So I wanted something that would just kind of uplift people, but it pretty quickly turned into a fairly deep practice of trauma healing, of learning about energy work, of supporting each other, of doing intuitive readings, of me coming out as a sound healer and beginning to embrace my gifts as a sound healer and using my voice. So I'm so grateful to the show. I'm so grateful for those of you who have been watching or listening since the very beginning of it, to those of you who are newer to watching or listening to it. Thank you so much for taking this journey with me. I really think that I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing in my own life and in my business if I hadn't been doing this practice and if we hadn't been doing this as a collective practice. So the first thing I'm going to do, we're going to pull some cards tonight because whenever I think of fun and celebration, that just is something that I love to do for fun that's a little bit playful. I have something a little bit playful in mind for the meditation tonight as well. We're going to do a Blue Supermoon card reading. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But before we do that, I want to pull a card just in celebration of the 3 years of the show. I'm using this Kyle Gray Gateway of Light activation deck. I did not have time to shuffle before the show tonight, so you'll hear a little bit of a shuffle sound. I usually try to take that off of the podcast. Let's pull a card in celebration of 3 years of this Wind Down Wednesday practice. Oh, beautiful. So we've got Higher Heart Activation, and I'll show it to the camera here. So what we've got here is this. It reminds me of the Stargate. If you ever saw the movie, or I know there was a show too, Stargate. There's this basically round portal, and it looks like it's made out of maybe stone or something like that, some sort of a solid material. And then in front of it, we've got this beautiful kind of pink and red. There's flowers, there's some clouds kind of in front of this portal, and then through the portal we see this beautiful light, and this card has really got kind of a red pink tone to it. It says Higher Heart Activation, and then underneath it says dropping shields, divine love, and your heart is healed. And I think this is a perfect card for our 3-year anniversary because that is a lot of what this show is about. We've talked a lot recently actually about protection, and it's funny that this says dropping shields because we've talked about how protection, it kind of helps and hurts us. We want protection that's permeable, right? And we want a safe space in our lives where we can drop our shield, where we can be ourselves, where we can be our weird, wonderful selves and not worry about being judged. And that really is the community that I have been trying to create both through this show and through my business and my work in general. And then we've got divine love. I mean, what more do you have to say? Every single week in our meditation, we invite divine love, that energy of source to flow into us. And that is a life-changing practice. And then it says your heart is healed. And I just love that. I think I've been doing this work pretty intensely, this trauma healing work personally, since I was about 19. So that is 25-ish plus maybe years now. And I think it is kind of like an onion, or we talk about excavation. You know, you do this healing work and you kind of dig something up, and it does, you feel more healed, and there's always kind of more healing to do. But I think underneath this idea of that is the idea that we are made exactly as we are meant to be made. So yes, we may have trauma frequencies, we may have things that we want to release or let go of, but it's only because we're peeling back the layers to find that divine love that is what we are made of. And just knowing that that is the stuff that we are made of is healing for the heart. So that was a beautiful card. And yeah, thank you so much for being here for 3 years of Wind Down Wednesdays. So tonight we are going to talk about the supermoon. It's a blue moon, which I posted. If you looked at I just asked my speaker this morning, tell me about the blue moon. So a normal blue moon it occurs when there's 2 full moons in one calendar month, and that only happens about every 2.7 years. And it's so interesting, I never thought about this. I was doing a little bit of research today, and you've probably heard the phrase once in a blue moon, like, oh, this only happens once in a blue moon. That is actually where that phrase came from, the actual physical blue moon. Now, it's called a blue moon. It's not because of the color of the moon. It has to do with the how it occurs and everything. And I will preface all of this by saying I am not an astrological expert by any means. I think it's interesting, but I am a novice with this. So any mistakes I make in terms of how I'm speaking about this, what we're going to talk about is the energy of it. That is what excites me. And I think astrology and these kind of events can be a good way to just sort of take stock of things. It can give us a little bit of a framework to kind of look at things, but I don't think that it's necessary. We can always do this beautiful work of releasing and beautiful work of calling in intention, but why not celebrate it and do it with a little bit of fun during a big astrological event like this? So this year, the moon is actually the closest it is to the earth, and that's what creates a supermoon. So a supermoon blue moon, or a super blue moon, only happens about once every 10 years, which is a pretty rare event. And then this year, the moon is in Pisces, which is a water sign. And so that's always about emotion. So this is a good time to kind of release old emotions that are no longer serving. And then the full moon always is kind of this culmination. So like at the new moon, we kind of set intentions, and then things start ramping up. And then at the full moon, it's kind of this time to kind of look back, how did my intentions work out? Is there anything I want to release? What do I want to let go of? So as we kind of end the moon cycle, headed back toward the new moon, we were sort of releasing and making way for new intention. And anytime we release something energetically, we always want to call in beautiful, new, fresh energy. So what we're going to focus on tonight in the reading and also in the meditation, in the meditation, we're really going to focus on this watery aspect, because the moon is very watery. I mean, the moon controls the tide. Literally, the tide goes in and out because of the moon. And our bodies are 60+% water and fluid. So the moon, to think that the moon doesn't have an effect on our bodies is really does us a disservice. And anybody who's worked in the medical field, it's pretty funny. Everybody knows the full moon tends to be crazy. And I worked on a psychiatric unit. That was my first hospital job when I was 20, I think. And we dreaded the full moon because it really does tend to kind of bring out a little bit of erratic behavior in people. Things get a little bit kind of cuckoo. Like it goes a little bit, things go a little bit wonky during the full moon. So because there's a lot of energy, again, it's the culmination of that moon cycle. And anytime we have a lot of energy going on, we've got the opportunity to really expand and welcome that energy in, but it can be kind of agitating and uncomfortable for us. So we will talk more about that with the meditation. What we're going to do for this full moon reading, this blue supermoon reading, is we're just going to kind of check in about this idea of this is the culmination of something we've been working for. What are we releasing now? What's no longer serving us? What might we want to think about calling in next? And we'll just kind of see where the cards take us. Sometimes I don't like to have super rigid rules around the cards we're pulling. Sometimes they come out not in the order I expect. And a lot of times I've got to get all the cards out before I get an idea of the whole picture. And I apologize because I'm talking and shuffling in the podcast. It's probably going to be distracting, but that's the way things went tonight. I had this really awesome idea for the meditation, and I don't think the weather is going to be cooperating, at least where I am. But the good thing is this will be available on the podcast, and the energy of the full moon goes for several days around the full moon. So you'll have the opportunity to follow the instructions for this meditation, even if you can't tonight. So we're pulling cards here. I'm just going to set my intention with the cards. We're just pulling. And again, if you're listening to this and it's not at the Blue Supermoon, it doesn't matter. Again, I like using astrology as a framework. It gives us a fun kind of framework to pull cards around, but that doesn't mean this is the only time that energy is culminating. It doesn't mean that it's the only time we're releasing. It's just a fun time to kind of look at that, and it's an extra potent time. All full moons are this way, but this Blue Supermoon is even more potent just because of kind of the energy around this. So what I'm going to do, I've decided, just as I'm doing this, because we're having fun and we're being playful, I'm just going to pull, instead of going card by card, I'm going to pull a few cards here and kind of see what comes up, and then we'll go through all of them together. Let's see where we're at here. So as I was sitting down to do this show, the wind was blowing about 40 miles an hour, and it was cloudy, and it looked like there was a big storm blowing in. So I had this intention that we might do our meditation outside tonight, but we'll see how that goes. All right, we're going to start. I've got 4 cards here. We're going to kind of start with this and then see if we want to pull any more. Interesting. So I always like to say, I'm using this Oracle of the 7 Energies deck today. This is kind of a chakra-based deck, and it's got really beautiful imagery. I usually pick my decks more based on the art and the feeling that they give me rather than kind of the wording. And this deck in particular, I almost never look at the book because the art is so evocative for me. So our first card here says Body and Soul. And it's got kind of a purple background with some stars and what looks like kind of something coming out of the top of this beautiful looking, it looks like it's a water lily. Okay, I had to look at it for a second. And oh, there's a dragonfly on here. And I think that was last week I mentioned that every time I see dragonflies, oh, that was on a TikTok reading. Every time I see dragonflies, it reminds me of my dad. I feel like he sends me dragonflies. Anyway, so we've got this beautiful water lily. It's green, it's vibrant. And then kind of coming up the top here, we've got this little bit of this kind of ephemeral looking energy that's kind of, so we've got body, that's this plant, and then we've got soul. And what I'm getting right away from this is this is what we've been working on. This is the culmination. The full moon is the culmination of what we've been working on. And what's coming through to me is that what we've been working on is this integration of body and soul. And we talked about that in the last show. And I've been listening to some of the older shows this week especially. And it's funny how often I say the body is not my personal favorite area to work with for myself, especially. I like to work on all layers for other people, but for me, the body feels a little bit more difficult to access. And that is starting to change. And that is what this card is kind of saying to me, is that right now we're really working to integrate body and soul rather than, and I see this, I had like 3 or 4 interactions today in totally what I would call like new agey environments, like banking environments, totally different. Like I went a bunch of places today and had some calls, and everybody seems like they're really opening up their consciousness, and they're more aware of how important their soul is and how important it is to work on the spiritual level. And at the same time, again, we used to really separate, you go to the doctor for your body, and then maybe you went to church or something for your spiritual. And we have all these practitioners now, like me, who are trying to bridge that gap, who work with both the body and the spiritual, the body and the soul. And the deal is that you really can't separate them. And that's something I've said so many times on the show. And I think this is the culmination of me finally really like feeling in my body, embodying this idea that you cannot separate the body and the soul. You cannot separate your emotions from your body. If your body has pain, there is an emotional component to that. If you are not feeling good on all levels of your being, you know, again, if your body has an issue, there's probably an energetic component to that. Is it an emotional energetic component? Is it a physical energetic component? Is it multiple? A lot of times it's multiple. And I think we're really starting to come to this understanding. That is what I'm getting from this first card. So what we were kind of doing this reading on is kind of what's the culmination? What is it time to release? And then like, what are we getting ready to call in? So the second card, I love this card. Every time I see it, it makes me smile. So this one says beautiful uncaging. And it's interesting. We're getting a lot of, like the first card we had tonight, a lot of kind of pinks and reds. And so this card has a heart on it, kind of like not an anatomical heart, like a pop culture type heart. And then there's a key hole in the center of it. And then it's just got this energy coming off of it. And it always reminds me a little bit of a cactus, because there's all these kind of little filaments that look like they're coming off of it, but they look kind of spiky. There's light coming out of the top of this heart as well. So what are we letting go of? We are letting go of the cage we have built for ourselves. And that has been coming up repeatedly for me personally, for people that I'm working with. This idea that when we are born into this state of just, you know, really pure spiritual love and light. And over the course of our lives, due to trauma and cultural programming and family programming and all of these things, we start to get sort of put into a cage. We get taught that we need to put ourselves into a cage. That's the thing. And then at a certain point, we are maintaining the cage. You know, the culture tells us to build a cage. And then we go, oh, okay. And we forget that that there's even a cage there. We don't even realize that we're caged. And so what we're releasing right now is this feeling that we have to be a certain way. I just went to get my hair done today, and I was talking about a couple different things, and I just said, I'm not hiding anymore. I'm not hiding who I am. If I'm in a situation, like I had a banking call today, and the guy said, oh, what is your business that you own? And I just like went right into, this is what I do. And he was like, oh, that's so cool. And my brother does yoga, and he's really into these things. So I think it's really important at this time in history, especially, we're at this pivotal moment. Like 2024 is going to be this huge pivot. And I've been feeling that myself for quite a while. And I see other people talking about it, other readers and people who receive intuitive information. This is not the time to play it safe. This is the time to start revealing yourself, to come out of your spiritual closet, to come out of your neurodivergent closet, to come out of your weirdness closet. Like, let your freak flag fly, basically. And let go of the fear around that, the fear around the rejection, the fear around not fitting in. I have never felt like I fit in anywhere that I've ever been. And guess what? I'm just going to make my own space and invite other people who don't fit in to come into my space, and we'll all not fit in together. That is how we change society. And that is part of what we're letting go of, is some of these old beliefs and programming ideas that tell us we have to be a certain way. So this next card says Divine Matrix. And again, we've got some really beautiful kind of pinks and purples. There's a circle in the middle that looks kind of like kind of a portal. Around it, it's got some yellow and then some kind of hieroglyphic looking marks. And it says Divine Matrix. So what's coming through, this is kind of an extension of the second card. I think these second two cards are about what we're releasing. So we are releasing this old programming matrix, this man-made matrix. We created this whole society. We made all these rules. and they're not working. They have not been working for a very long time, but I think it is just now that enough people are starting to wake up to that fact that we really have the opportunity to change. And what we're being asked to, so this is like a release and a calling in card. This is kind of like, I'm asking you to trust this uncaging, to let yourself be who you are unashamedly, and then we can start to construct a new reality out of this divine matrix. So not the man-made matrix, not the patriarchal matrix, not this idea of all these rules and these hierarchies, but this divine expansion. I look at this card and I see expansion. At the heart of this card, yes, maybe that's the divine energy of source that created us all. That's the unconditional love. And as you move out from that, there's these beautiful intuitive messages that come out from that center of that divinity, which exists within all of us. This is not something that's really outside of ourselves. And then around that, we create beauty. Around that, there's these beautiful flowers and colors and lights. So when we can begin to let go of the programming that we have been working with for so long and come into alignment with divine light and love, which is what we are made of, we can construct an entirely new society, reality around this divine matrix, not the man-made matrix, but the divine matrix. So yeah, this is a really big reading right now. And I've had a lot of these coming through. I've had these climate change readings coming through. Like it is time to collectively start shifting and keep doing your individual work, because that is what ripples out to make the collective shift. But recognize that we are getting ready for a massive shift humanity-wide, and you can be a part of that by tapping into these energies and by allowing yourself to be who you are. That really is the first step. Stop hiding and be who you are. So our last card here, that's what are we calling in? So I said anytime you release something, you need to call something in. So we're culminating this integration of body and soul. We're letting go of our fear around being who we really are. And we're letting go of these programmed ideas and beginning to think about what happens if I can be in alignment. What do I get to call in when I am in alignment? And this card says great big love. And I don't know how much better I could have said this if I had designed a topic around this. Well, that's one of the reasons I love cards. So this card has more of a blue feel to it, kind of like a blue spacey feel or like an ocean feel in the background. But there's another heart, again, pop culture shaped heart, not an anatomical heart. It's got wings. There's light coming all the way down. There's this pillar of light kind of coming down from the center. I just made that motion with my hand when I said alignment. Being aligned with divine light means this pillar of light that comes through you all the way from that divine space into the body and down into the earth. And if we can collectively step out of that cultural programming that we've created, that man-made matrix, and begin to align, which again, this work starts individually and then it starts to ripple out, we could create a society built on great big love, on the true unconditional love that we are made of, rather than this transactional, relational, I do this, you do this, I do this, you do this. And it's so hard. It's hard to do that in your own life, in your own family. It's hard. It's hard to love yourself that way. That's where we need to start. And it, no matter how long I've done this work, it always feels like that is the thing that I'm working toward. How do I let myself be loved? How do I accept love? How do I love others? That is really the only question there is. Everything else stems from that. And the work that we do to get there is this integration of body, mind, and spirit. It is that letting go of the trauma programming that tells you you're not enough, or that you need to be a certain way, or you need to look a certain way, or dress a certain way. F that. We are way past that stuff now. It is time to get into alignment. And when we do that, we can create an entirely new reality, both for ourselves personally, for our inner circle, and for the world at large. And I said we were doing a 3-year anniversary celebration, and like, what a better reading could we have had from that? So that's where we're at with that. Let's talk a little bit about tonight's meditation. So I said, I received that card. It said play, and it said I needed to have more fun. And I thought, oh my gosh, let's play with the full moon. And I'm going to tell everybody to go outside and do the meditation. And there's a huge storm blowing through Tucson right now, but maybe you're not in Tucson, or maybe you're watching this later. And it's always a good time to go outside, whether the moon is full or not. But let's talk a little bit about what happens when the moon is full and you go outside. And it's funny because I think the moons are getting more powerful. I've said that. The energy of the full moon, every time that comes in, it keeps increasing in potency. But also, I feel it more. So the more you do this work, the more in alignment you get, the more you really feel like part of nature. And I went outside last night with my husband to take the dogs out. And the moon was pretty full already, because the energy of the full moon, stretches to 2 or 3 days around the actual peak of the full moon. So again, if you can't go outside tonight, don't worry. Go outside at some point. I just look at it and just feel it and bathe in the full moon. So the full moon is a beautiful time to take your crystals outside, charge them in the full moon. There are some crystals that do not do well in sun, so the moon is safe. You can take your crystals out. I like to take them out and just leave them all night long. If you're at a place that's safe and you can do that, or leave them out there for an hour or two. You can actually take water and leave water out in the full moon overnight and charge it as moon water and set intentions around that. Somebody earlier today said, can I do that with my wine? And I was like, I don't see why not. You can charge anything in the full moon. Sometimes I like to take my bowls out there. The moon, to me, the moon is in Pisces, and that's a water symbol today. But the moon, again, it always has this watery feel to me. It's a very yin energy. So in Chinese medicine, we've got yang, that's kind of the masculine active energy. And then we've got yin, which is this sort of receptive feminine energy. And there's a reason that we call a woman's cycle a moon cycle. And the idea of that, I just described the moon cycle. That is actually the way a woman's body works as well. So the new moon, that's your period. That's when you're shedding old things. That's when you're letting go of things. You're getting prepared for what's new. Then as you kind of ramp up toward ovulation, that full moon, that's the culmination. That's when you release this egg, and it's like, let's see if we're going to make new life. And then you go into your luteal phase. In the women's cycle, that is kind of when we're heading back down toward the new moon. That's this more rest. That's what we're heading into now. After the full moon, we culminate, we release, and then we start to rest. We start to get to reap the benefits of what we've done leading up to the full moon. So the moon cycle is linked to everything. It's linked to our physical female cycle. It's linked to the tides. It literally moves the water of the planet. So again, it's moving. The fluid within your body is responding to the moon, whether you know it or not. So when you can go out in this full moon and really bathe in that light, it just feels so beautiful and magical to me now. It's very recharging. It's like taking a nice nap or a rest to me. So for tonight's meditation, if it is accessible to you and it is safe, I encourage you to go outside and sit in the moonlight. Now, a couple things to be said there. If you're listening to this later on and it's not a full moon, you can do this meditation anytime. If you can't get outside, right now, again, there's a big storm blowing through, I can hear it. So even if I wanted to go outside, it probably wouldn't be safe, and it's hard to record out there. I don't know if you can hear that on the recording. There's actually, I don't know if it's hail hitting the window. So the other thing to remember is that even if you can't see the moon, she's there. So the moonrise I checked, it was at 7:05 in Tucson tonight. It's 7:33. So the moon is there, whether you see it or not. The energy is there, whether you can see the moon or not. You can take advantage of this beautiful, watery flow of energy. And I think we were just talking about cultural programming. And one of the things that we've culturally programmed out of ourselves is this idea of, we've programmed in this idea that having emotions is bad. We've programmed out the idea that flowing with emotions is good. So, everybody has heard somebody say, maybe about them at some point, something about, like me, my whole life, you're too sensitive, or you need to get over this, or you're too emotional, or whatever. That is not a bad thing. That is just something we have culturally decided is a bad thing. So being in flow, being emotional, if you let your emotions come up, they will flow through and out. That is how they're meant to work. It's when you stifle your emotions, when you feel like expressing emotions, especially when we are told is weak. I remember the first time I ever cried in front of my therapist, I had to turn my chair around. And she said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "I don't want you to see me cry." And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, it's weak." And she was the person who started teaching me that, like, no, in fact, it's actually strong. Being able to show your emotions and express your emotions is strong. So this yin energy of sort of flow and of being, sometimes it feels like you're at the mercy of the tides, right? You're at the mercy of the moon. The tide goes in, the tide goes out. It's like having to acknowledge that you're not in control. And that's really hard for us to do. And emotions are not controllable. Every once in a while, I have a lot of grief, and it'll just come up and I'll just start crying and be like, oh, a little bit of a griefy moment. Sorry about that, and I just move on. I try not to suppress it, unless I'm in a place where I really can't do it. The more we normalize the fact that being sensitive and emotional is not only acceptable, it should be celebrated. And it doesn't make you any less strong. It doesn't make you any less smart. It doesn't make you any less able to make decisions about things. That's another thing, oh, women can't be in charge because they're too emotional. Say the men who have their emotions so stuffed down that it's coming out in spiky forms of energy, anger. That's what happens when you suppress emotions for too long. You completely shut down. It can lead into depression, or you just leak this sort of angry energy because you're not dealing with your own emotions. So recognizing that the moon has this watery pull on us, and just surrendering to it. It's like being in the lazy river on your raft, just floating down the river, and like, oh, maybe I bumped into the side of something, and I'll just correct, and letting ourselves be moved. Letting ourselves be surrendering to that movement, surrendering to that kind of watery flow of the moon's energy really does serve us. It reminds us that we have yang energy, we have sun energy, we have active masculine energy. We need to be balanced. But that yang energy has been so venerated in our culture, so celebrated in our culture, that we look down on that moon energy. And the energy of the feminine is what creates life, literally. So what I'm talking about is coming back to a balance. We don't want to go the other way to an imbalance and be all yin. We want to have some sort of a balance. And when we're in a time of, like right now, it's feeling like a very yin time and the moon is full, celebrate that, enjoy it. Give yourself some yin. The end of your cycle is the yin part of your cycle. It is the rest part of your cycle, the winter, the hibernation. The first part of the cycle is that yang cycle. And yes, I'm talking about a woman's moon cycle, but the moon cycle affects men as well. Men have hormonal shifts as well. So recognizing that we're not meant to kind of live in this flatline state. We're meant to be able to move. We're meant to be, for balance, we're meant to be able to switch back and forth. Like, yep, I'm in my yang. Today I was in my yang energy. I was getting stuff done. I was making calls. I was getting places. I was going where I needed to go. And now tonight it's like, oh, and I can let all that go and just really celebrate this beautiful, rich, fertile yin energy and feel like I'm being kind of rocked in this watery tide of the moon. So for tonight's meditation, we're going to tap into that watery energy and just kind of celebrate kind of opening to the moon and letting go of things that aren't serving us and getting ready to call in what's new. So if you are in a place where you can go outside and do this meditation, find a beautiful, comfortable space where you're in the light of the moon. If the moon's not out or you're inside, then just send a little bit of an intention that you're welcoming that moon energy into your space, and it will absolutely serve you. So let's meditate together. So whether you're inside or outside, whether you're in a full moon or not, find a comfortable position. This is going to be a pretty receptive meditation tonight. So if you're comfortable with lying down, you might really feel good about that. If you're in a place where you want to drift off to sleep at the end of this meditation, get cozy in your bed. Lay down and prepare yourself for sleep. If you'd like to sit up, I always suggest sitting up in a place where you can be supported. Maybe you're leaning your back against something. Maybe you're in a nice chair with your feet on the ground. It's important during meditation, if you can, to have some part of your body in contact with the earth, especially when we're doing a meditation like this, where we're really tapping into the flow of nature. We're really tapping into recognizing that we're part of nature. We're not above nature. We're not in control of nature. We are part of nature. And there's no better way to feel that than feeling the energy of the beautiful full moon, of feeling the energy of the earth beneath you. So let's start with 3 nice big oxytocin breaths. We're going to breathe in through the nose. We're going to sigh that breath out through the mouth with an audible ha sound. Do a few more of those. Breathing in this way vibrates the vagus nerve. It tells the body that we're coming into that rest and digest state, that parasympathetic ease response. This is a beautiful way to let your body know that you're stepping out of the stress of the day or evening for just even a little while, giving your body a little bit of a break from that yang energy, from that active energy that we tend to be in during the day where we're getting things done. We're in this yin energy, and this would be a beautiful meditation to do at night before you sleep, to welcome in this yin receptivity, this rest and receive mode. So at any point in this meditation, you can always go back to that oxytocin breath. Breathing out through the mouth is a great way to release. If you have any emotions come up, you can breathe in through the nose, breathe out through the mouth. Just help that energy move through and out of the body. So once you're comfortable, you might notice that your body is asking to do a little bit of gentle movement just to get settled. So give yourself permission to move in whatever way feels good, but be really gentle with this. This is not a time for a really deep stretch. This is more like I'm doing a little bit of gentle movement, maybe going to 20% of my capacity. If you're lying on your back, you might find that you want to kind of roll your wrists and ankles, or maybe move your head around, or maybe you're already settled and feeling good, and that's great. Whatever feels good here. As you're ready and you start to become still, just become aware of the earth beneath you. Maybe it's beneath your feet or your bottom. Maybe you're lying down and your whole body's contacting the earth. If you're lying elevated, like in a bed, just imagine that you're lying on the earth. The energy is not that far away. And before we call in that beautiful watery moon energy, let's settle into the rich support of the earth. The earth longs for us to surrender and let it support us. So let yourself be held here. Let your body start to feel heavy. Feel that connection with the ground. You might imagine that you're sitting, standing, or lying in a beautiful, rich garden. You're in this beautiful, loamy topsoil. And as you look around, there's these beautiful flowers and plants and trees all around you, all being nourished and supported by the earth. You can allow yourself to be nourished and supported in the same way. growing some roots down into the earth, just like those trees and plants do. Letting yourself be part of this ecosystem as we're meant to be. And then gently allow the crown chakra, the top of the head, to open. Let's just invite that beautiful divine light in through the top of the head. Let it flow down through the head and the jaw into the neck and throat, down into the shoulders, into the upper arms and elbows, down into the forearms, wrists, and hands. Letting this beautiful golden light flow into the chest and upper back, down through the belly and mid-back, into the low belly and the low back, into the pelvis. Maybe take a nice big breath into the pelvis, and as you sigh it out, let that light flow down into the thighs, toward the knees. Taking another big breath in and then sighing it out, letting that beautiful light flow down from the knees, through the lower legs, all the way into the ankles and feet. So now you've got this rich, dark, beautiful support of the earth and this light of divine, unconditional love flowing through, mingling in your body. And as you're ready, just check in and notice if you can get a sense of the moon. This beautiful, big blue supermoon, this big full moon energy. Even if you're practicing this on a new moon, there is energy to be found. But especially during the full moon, there's this big pulsation of energy. If you're practicing this outside, you might even open your eyes and gaze at the moon for this. Noticing that beautiful light, noticing that beautiful energy coming off the moon. And again, if you can't see the moon or the moon's not out, that energy is still there. There's a beautiful flow to this energy. There's a beautiful movement to this energy, encouraging us to rest and be receptive as we step into this next phase of the moon cycle. So checking in now briefly, what is culminating for you this full moon? Is there something in your life that you've been working on, that you've been working toward, that you've been working to release? And how has that been going for you? And release any judgment about this. You don't have to fully release everything in one cycle of the moon. We have many more cycles to live. So just take notice. Maybe you set an intention at the new moon and you're checking in to see how that's going. Maybe you're just noticing that there's some things in your life that you're feeling ready to release. Maybe there's a situation you're feeling ready to let go of or walk away from. Maybe there's a situation that ended that you're starting to feel a little more at ease with. Just set the intention here to release anything that's no longer serving you. That's as general as you can be there. You can be very specific, but you can also just say, I release what no longer serves me for the highest good. And again, surrender to this beautiful watery moon energy. Let it move that intention through your body and down into the earth. I release that which no longer serves me for the highest good. And let that energy just release down into the earth to be recycled for the highest good. Again, being part of this cycle of nature, being part of this birth and rebirth and little kind of death of energy that we go through with this moon cycle every month. This beautiful culmination now starting to head into the rest that comes with the rest of this moon cycle. We're just going to step into a little bit of sound for release before we begin to call in new energy. So just stick with this intention. I release anything that no longer serves me for the highest good. Be anai, anai. Be anai, anai. Why, anai. Boya ya ya ne ya ya. Boya na ya ya ne ya na ya. Beya na 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 na. Taking a nice deep breath, sighing it out. Letting go of anything else you're feeling ready to release now. And then whenever we release, we want to call in new, fresh energy. So again, tapping into that divine light, calling it down through the body, tapping into this beautiful moonlight, calling that into your body, this watery flow of receptivity, of being flexible, of being able to recognize that you have no control and being okay with that. Being okay with allowing yourself to be moved by the tides, not fighting them, but allowing them to work with you, letting yourself surrender to the flow of those tides. If you have an intention you'd like to set here to call something in, just be gentle about this. This is a time for letting go and rest. And maybe that's your intention. After fully releasing, I call in the energy of rest and restoration. Restoration. I am willing to rest and restore my energy. I am willing to take the time I need to rest and restore and recharge. I recognize that I can start anew at the new moon, building up to a culmination. And at this time, I am ready to rest and recharge. And if there's any specific intentions coming to you, feel free to call those in. Maybe there's something you're getting ready, you're preparing for that's coming up, just calling in some flexibility and flow around that, calling in this beautiful movement of receptivity, this watery energy of flowing around obstacles, not getting stopped by them flowing through anything that comes up or around it, just with a beautiful flow. And you can focus on that intention or just continue to set this intention that you are ready to receive. That's a beautiful general intention to set. I am open to receive for the highest good. We are nine. We are the nine. We na na nine. We na na nine. We na na Just bathing in this beautiful full moon energy. Now letting go of the intentions you set, if any. Just allow yourself to be for a moment. This beautiful light of the moon coming in to recharge you, coming in to invite you to receive, to invite you to be in flow, to be receptive to new ideas, to new experiences, to flexibility and flow. Let this energy move through you in a beautiful flow, just like the ocean flowing in and out. letting yourself spend the last few moments here really feeling this flow of energy, sending this flow through the transmission. Beautiful flow of light and love. If you're outside enjoying the full moon, stay here as long as you like, as long as you have time for. Feel that beautiful moonlight on your face. Let it bathe you. Let it begin this beautiful step into receptivity, into recharge. If you're in a space where you'd like to fall asleep and it's safe to do so, this would be a good time to begin drifting off into sleep, the ultimate state of receptivity and rest and restoration. If you're coming back to the rest of your evening here, be very slow and gentle about this, riding these waves of energy, this watery flow of energy. Let that stay with you. Let this connection to both the earth and the sky stay with you. Let this beautiful, shining warmth and love of the moon's energy stay with you as you begin to come back to yourself, maybe slowly moving your body around, taking a few deep breaths, breathing in through the nose, sighing those breaths out through the mouth. You can use that oxytocin breath if it feels good. Coming back into some movement as it feels good. Sat Nam. The truth of your identity is that you have this beautiful receptivity within you. This beautiful yin flow of water that the moon exemplifies, letting her light shine on you, encouraging this receptivity, this flexibility, this rest and restoration. Take one or two more deep breaths, and as you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me this evening for this beautiful celebration of our 3-year anniversary and this blue supermoon, or any other full moon you might be celebrating. You can use this meditation anytime, but especially at the full moon to tap into that beautiful energy of the moon. Have a beautiful rest of your evening and week, and I will see you next week for Wind Down Wednesdays.